Hello, welcome everybody to our session, Evolving the Law, Which Rights Should Nature Stand For? We're joined by two incredible panelists today. First, Justice Muhammad Ashraful Kamal of the High Court Division of the Supreme Court of Bangladesh. And second, Laila Mustafa Abdullatif, Director General of Emirates Nature in Association with WWF. And this panel is going to be an exploration of innovations to align human laws and society with nature. One of those will be the rights of nature. And I am an earth lawyer. I represent nature directly, and I am the executive director of Earth Law Center. And for the past 12 years, we have worked all over the world to give nature a voice, a vote, a day in court. Because traditionally, the law treats humans and nature as separate from each other. Nature is treated as property or a thing. But we all know that we're just one small part of this much larger interconnected web of life. We understand that. And what if the legal system reflected that reality as well? And there is a movement growing precipitously all over the world to give nature rights, to give nature its own board seats in companies, and to otherwise align our human laws with nature's laws. And this is not just a legal movement, it's a social and cultural movement as well. And one of the focal points of this movement has been rivers. Rivers are alive. They have a spirit, many think. And there was an extraordinary decision in 2019 in Bangladesh on the rights of the Turag River, which extended to give legal rights or personhood to all rivers in Bangladesh. And we're going to hear about that now with Justice Kamal. So I read the preface to the English translation of the case. And in it, you talk about how Bangladesh is a nation built by rivers. Many of them are suffering, though, from development, illegal settlement, and pollution. I wonder, what do rivers mean to Bangladesh? And tell me a little bit about how this landmark case came to your court.
Thank you. Thank you, Grant. Thank you inviting me. Bangladesh actually a riverine country. And we have, once upon a time, 1300s and above rivers. But nowadays, it becomes only 450. All the rivers are going vanish because of encroaching and pollution, So whenever Turag River case came before my court, I think to do something to at least rest of the 450 rivers to protect. Because in the meantime, 700 and above rivers we already destroy. And to deal with this matter, I think that first of all, I have to give my judgment Bangla in my mother language. Because people of Bangladesh, they want to know what is actually I want to say. If they don't understand, they can't aware of this, my verdict, and they don't understand what I want to telling them and what it is necessary to protect our beautiful rivers. So that is why I gave my judgment in Bangla. Only at that moment, my main intention to save my country's rivers, lakes, water bodies. So after that, some electronic and print media, they across the world, particularly Vox and NPR also, they reporting my case. And after that, Oxford University translated my Bengali version judgment into English, and you can, it is available in the Oxford University online library. You can find it. Actually, we are the one of the species among the species. We are the one of the species among the species. But we are claiming that we are the owner of all these species. We are claiming that we are the owner of all the planet's resources. So that is why my main intention to give something different way to handle this case. And I declare I adopt public trust doctrine.
Let me ask you about that a little
This
bit.
doctrine is very important for protecting natures and rivers also.
Definitely. So in the decision, you included all these innovative approaches, the public trust doctrine, the polluter pays principle, the precautionary principle, and then the rights of nature. So it was really this innovative, like forward-looking judgment on how we can live in harmony with nature through the law. How did you come to the rights of nature? How did you hear about it? At what point did you decide that had to be part of the decision?
Because after researching, and I heard about your Colorado judgment, Colorado case, and another case, Mono Lake case, and the cases across the world, they trying to protect our rivers, ecosystem, and our environment. So I researched those, and after that I found that polluters pay is the important things. So I adopt polluters pay principle. Who pollute our rivers, he will pay. Wherever who will pollute our environment, he should pay. The principle, after adopting this principle, you see further encroachment just stopped. Unbelievable. After actually we see the law costs little, but affects a lot. My single judgment is not any costly judgment, but affects a trillion resources of Bangladesh now protected. And pollution significantly reduces. Now they are understanding that the people of Bangladesh, they are thinking about that. It is all the rivers, forest, ecosystem, environment. It's actually for our generations. What we see, our children, grandchildren maybe not see. If we destroy this way, our rivers, environment, and ecosystem, your grandchildren will not see what we have actually once upon a time.
And if people don't know that some of the cases that Justice Kamal referenced are rights of the Colorado River and then a public trust doctrine case in California, and I have seen amongst judges involved in this ecocentric law, rights of nature space, sort of a global conversation, learning from each other about new innovative tools to protect nature that are not as common in the courts as we would like to see. And in this case in particular, you mentioned some of the positive impacts that we saw, pushing back against encroachment and illegal settlements. But then we also saw something really amazing, which is giving a voice in the legal system to the river itself. And you declared the National River Conservation Commission to be the guardian of the river. And rivers can have guardians as well, just like humans. A child can have a legal guardian. Why can't a river have a legal guardian as well? And that opens up so many possibilities to represent it, to give it agency in the legal system. So I wonder what's happened since you declared them the guardians. How's that going?
It is a British English law, loco parentis, to give guardianship. So, and I adopt this law because the river, they don't say anything, they can defend themselves. So what will happen if river encroached, river polluted, who will do? In that situation, I think that there's somebody is needed, some person, some organization or some government needed. So river commission, we have a river commission, and that was also created by the High Court judgment. And I gave that commission the guardian of this, all of our rivers. So that is why rivers are protected by the able hand. And this loco parentis, the principle of loco parentis, it is decided by British law, in the British law. They
Yeah.
gave, so the river also, he has the orphan, he has no guardian, so he need a guardian. Otherwise, who will take the responsibility? You see the people, river are polluted, you see the somebody are destroying your beautiful rivers, canals, lakes. So who will act on behalf of the rivers? That is why I adopt this year. This river commission is the guardian of all rivers of Bangladesh.
Wow. That's really exciting and it's transformative for a river just to be a thing, and then all of a sudden it's represented by people in this sophisticated manner in the government. And I know from experience that these types of precedent-setting wins that have never been done before inspire so many people. I saw it in Colombia where Judge Palacio declared legal rights for the Atrato River, and then this spurred many more rights of nature decisions throughout the country. I've seen it when we worked with the first company to put nature on its board of directors, Faith in Nature, working with Lawyers for Nature in the United Kingdom, and many more companies are now doing that. So you can create a movement through a legal innovation. My last question before and we'll come back to you in Q&A, but my last question is, what do you think the future is for Bangladesh? Do you see rights of nature as a core part of the legal system in the future?
Yes, it's very, very good impact to our society. Everybody appreciated our electronic and print media. They took it seriously. And their effort, actually people are now aware of this. Yes, we have to protect our rivers. We have to protect our canals, forests, wild animals, everything we need actually. We should harmoniously live with each other.
Thank you. All right, so hold your questions because we're going to come back to Q&A in just a minute, but we're going to shift over to you, Laila. So we've talked about rights of nature in Bangladesh, kind of narrowing in on a case study. I want to take a broader perspective of law, culture, both in this region and globally. And rights of nature is just one way that we can sort of rewild the legal system and rewild the culture. But there's so many other ways as well. And I know a lot of societies are turning back to original teachings in their commitment to give the environment stronger status in the legal system. All of the religions of the world teach compassion to nature, and they also teach humans to be guardians of the natural world. And these are things that we can learn from. I wonder if you can reflect on how nature and the environment have been regarded in the UAE's tradition and its culture.
Well, thank you, Grant, and thank you again for having me here today to the Dubai Future Forum. I'm very excited about this panel. I think it's an interesting one because if you look at nature, it's been very much intrinsically integrated within the DNA of our culture and our traditions in the UAE and as Emiratis. Back in the days, and this is not very long ago, we were very much living within nature, right? And we had this deep sense of respect for nature. Pearling was one of our main industries, and that required us to have a deep understanding of coastal habitats, of biodiversity, of seasonal changes. And that allowed us to build this deep respect for nature and what it has to offer. And our lands as well were very much treasured. They hosted resources that weren't readily available the way they are at the moment, right? So we would rely on our ancestors who built traditional irrigation systems, the Felaj system, that would act as rainwater catchment zones from the mountains that would help then flush water into our farms and our settlements. So this concept of sustainability has always been ingrained in our culture, and it's been passed on from generations to generations. Myself personally, my great-grandfather was in the pearl diving business. I've spent my childhood very much connecting with my fishing roots and understanding that you eat what you consume. You don't waste what you consume, right? So you build this respect for nature, and I think, even with our late president, His Highness Sheikh Zayed, Allah yarhamah, he was very much an advocate for sustainability. He was a strong environmentalist, and he always had this concept of, we conserve what our land has to offer, and we only take what's needed, and we preserve the rest for future generations. So I think what needs to happen more and more is a stronger integration now of the realization of the services that nature has to offer and how it should be respected the same way we respect other aspects in life.
Let's talk about that a little bit. In cultures around the world, as you reflected on here, there is this historical, deep cultural connection with nature, and we live in nature. There's no separation. But globally, there's been a trend away from that, and under 30% of people worldwide now believe they have themselves a deep spiritual connection to nature, which is a crisis. But there's also an environmental crisis and a climate crisis that's happening at the same time, and I think that's kind of waking people up to this connection they lost with nature. So specific to climate change, how do you think that is forcing people to kind of reconsider and reevaluate their own role in nature?
I think we recognize that there's definitely a trend where people aren't as connected to nature, especially youth. And as an organization, as Emirates Nature-WWF, we've tried to bridge that through programs like Connect with Nature, Leaders of Change, large-scale volunteer movements, if you will, where people have the ability to come onto the ground and really connect with nature and help implement the blueprint of conservation that we have here in the UAE. But I think what we've seen as effective with this type of mechanism is during the floods, the record-breaking floods in the UAE in April, we had put a call out to action, and we noticed that a lot of people wanted to come down to the rural communities to actually help build climate resilience, clean debris, put in place new reforestation of projects in the area, but actually build and support the local farmers in greater climate resilience for future threats of climate change. But what we're also seeing around the world is you have, the floods, the 2022 floods in Pakistan, the recent typhoons in Philippines, the heat waves, extreme drought around the world. There is a need for us to have a much deeper focus on this convergence between humanitarian relief efforts associated with climate change and real integration of nature and climate adaptation within our disaster risk reduction strategies, right? And this is where people are starting to see this. It's not, climate change isn't a future threat, it's reality. We know that by 2050, around 1.2 billion people are projected to be displaced due to climate change. We know in vulnerable communities around the world, by 2030, it's projected, losses and damages are projected to be in the range of $400 to $800 billion annually. So we need to be much more serious and intentional when it comes to putting in place resources and investment to be better prepared for the impacts of climate change and to put in place the right adaptive measures to address the future climate risk hazards. We know that nature is a massive ally when it comes to climate change. Nature-based solutions have the potential to reduce climate intensity by 26%. Managing and protecting our rivers, our coastal ecosystems, our coral reefs, our mangroves can reduce wave heights by up to 71%. So this all has an impact on the intensity of climate change impacts towards those local communities, and we need to be much more effective and raise the bar, if you will, and raise the urgency of integrating humanitarian efforts and climate efforts much more strategically together.
Yeah. Coral reefs is an interesting example of, what we do to nature is really what we're doing to ourselves. And I think 500 million people's livelihoods rely upon healthy coral reefs. And also, they represent 1% of the ocean's surface or bottom, but 25% of the biodiversity. And there's just so many countless examples of how we treat nature is about how we're treating humans. So would you say, since we're looking to the future, that really considering nature in everything we do is an essential part of meeting all of our human needs?
I think it's the foundation of meeting our human needs. I mean, we all know that we rely on nature for food, for water, for the air we breathe, for shelter. These are our basic needs as human beings, right? And not only that, we know that nature is also very much integrated into our DNA, into our identity, our culture. It's the way that we bond with our communities. It's linked to our physical and emotional well-being, right? But it also underpins the foundation of our economic ecosystem. So we know that over 50% of the world's GDP is either moderately or heavily reliant on nature. So if we're not putting in place the right measures and laws to protect nature, then the basic ecosystem services that nature provides us will no longer be there. And that's where, as human beings, that impacts our ability to survive. So we need to understand it's not just about protecting our mangroves or protecting our coral reefs. It's a circle, and everything is completely interconnected with one another.
Yeah. Everything is interconnected, and our goal is really, again, for the law to reflect that deep interconnection of all things. I'm a rights of nature nerd. People there realize that. I love talking about rights of nature as a concept, and I have a brilliant environmental thinker. He's here sitting next to me, so I can't help but to ask if nature did have rights or personhood, as we talked about in the Bangladesh case. What might those rights be, and how might you enforce them?
Well, I think even with the Bangladesh case, we're seeing this around the world. We're seeing a lot of countries explore rights, legal rights for nature. We're seeing in Ecuador, they've put in place legal accords to ensure that nature has the ability to function effectively, to maintain its cycles. We're seeing in New Zealand, they have put in place rights towards rivers and forests, right? But if you take it, again, one step below, because we're all interconnected, our own human rights are completely linked to the right to nature surviving effectively, right? So we're part of a big ecosystem. And I think what's important is we need to take it a step further and realize that it's a rights of all perspective, and nature has to now be integrated again into this bigger picture of disaster risk relief, right? Because that's where the world is moving towards, and that's where, as human beings, we all have a right to survive, and the reality is we need to rely on nature for that survival.
Yeah, thank you so much. We're going to wrap up here and do questions in a second. I did want to just reflect the first time I came to this amazing Museum of the Future. I met with the executive director at the time, Leif Carlson. And when I came here, I expected, the future to be really all about like robotics and technology, and it is. But when I asked him, I'm like, what is the Museum of the Future really all about? He told me it's about our connection with nature. And that's the thesis here. And I think that's true when you're looking ahead to a prosperous society that is thriving. It's about our interconnection with nature, as we heard over and over again, and with each other. And that's the future of the legal system as well. It's this deep interconnection with the natural world. So I want to open it up for questions. Wow, we saw a hand just shoot up instantly. You've been waiting for this question. Let's hear what it is. And ideally, we'd bounce back and forth between the two panelists. So after this first one, if you have a question for the other panelist, go ahead. So if you ask me, I'll repeat it for the mic.
Yeah, so I'm Dr. Fawad Ali from Australia. I work in the sustainable production system. Very interesting talk I have listened. And like we are all saying we are interconnected. So my thinking is that if we are interconnected, why not we raise a slogan across the world, the one ecosystem?
Yes.
That is very important. So the justice is here, justice of peace is here. Like the question is, there's like multiple resolution has been passed in different countries like Bangladesh and like the Ecuador and like that. So we have one unit, the United Nations of Organizations. Why not we make a body over there that could be the legal protector of the rivers across the whole earth, which we call the global village. If we are living in a global village, then we need to raise a voice, the one ecosystem, and that could be a plausible approach and a rational approach to address all the ecosystem across the world. I'm from the tropical North Queensland. We are living in the coral reef system. And what we are facing over there, like the production system, like the food, what we consume, that are also the major cause for polluting the coral reef system, the coral sea. So I think so, we shouldn't focus on the individual systems in each ecosystem or in each country. Maybe there could be a better resolution through the United Nations of organization where every country is placing the money, placing the aid to address the humanity. So any thoughts about that? Thank you.
Who'd like to answer that question or reflect on it?
Yes, yes, I highly agree with you. And we should. Actually, the problem is not individual countries. The problem is actually whole world. You see, we are all we human are actually, we are a transit passenger. We are come from unknown planet and we will definitely go another unknown planet. We all are transit passengers for the time being, maybe 60, 70 years, 80 years. As a transit passenger, what we do in the airport? We just sit and relax and enjoy the surrounding lounge and waiting for the next flight. So if you think that our tiny life, maybe 60, 70, 80 years, we're just 1 minute maybe. So as a transit passenger, we are not destroy the lounge. See, whole planet is a transit lounge. We will definitely will go. Will not stay. Nobody can stay here. Everybody should go. And this transit lounge we should forever for our future passengers. And who is our future passengers? Our children, grandchildren, years to come.
Thank you so much. In the spirit of bouncing back and forth, who has a question for Laila here? Oh, this hand skyrocketed up over there. Go ahead. I'll get to you next.
Thank you, everyone. Very insightful. My name is Lucas. I'm from Brazil. We have an association of futures focused in Latin America. And hearing you speak about this theme, one of the things that came to my mind was AI. I mean, when you think about nature, when you compare with nature, AI is recent, it's a baby, and it took like a year for us to come up with the idea of having an AI seated at a board. And nature has been around since ever, and we took like 200 years to come up with this idea. I'm wondering when those things conflict, nature, technology, especially now with AI, how do we solve this? I'm thinking about our association, or me as an individual, and me as part of a company. Is there anything that we can do to try to stop it or try to mitigate that in some fashion? Thank you.
Thank you for that. I don't believe they conflict. I think if they're planned effectively, they're needed, right? So you need to look at AI and technology and the role that they have with regards to especially nature-based solutions. But I think what's important as part of that stepwise process is to engage with local communities on the ground, because they are the guardians of nature, and they have that intricate knowledge and history and background on what are the most effective adaptive measures that should be put in place within their particular communities. I think you do need to go down into a landscape level. A lot of the time, solutions that are developed at a global level can only do so much. So you do need to look at what is really required within this particular area and location. But that's where AI allows us to forecast and project future trends so that we can more effectively plan ahead and not plan for the next year or two. You want to be able to look at real climate vulnerability assessments that are location specific, that give us an idea of where are the most vulnerable populations, what are the most potential successful interventions that should be put in place, and where can technology ease that, and is there a potential for some of those nature-based solutions to be bankable? And especially if they're aligned with technology and AI, there's a higher probability of them generating a return of investment.
Thank you. I saw your hand go up a couple times. Go ahead.
Hi, Miguel from Colombia. My question is, what would you say are the biggest risks and threats for the rights of nature in a 10 or 15 years time frame?
Biggest threats for the rights of nature in 10 or 15 years. Interesting. Anyone like to answer? I have some thoughts as well. Everyone has thoughts.
It's a complex question. Actually, you see, when COVID came, all the world greatest health system, we are all under the table. It's tiny microvirus. We cannot face this tiny microvirus, COVID. We are all under the table and saving ourselves. That is the main question. Our power is limited. You have to understand. We have to understand. And nature law is the supreme law of this universe. I have declared in my judgment. And all the laws and policies inconsistent with this law is void. If you follow, you will gain. If you don't follow, disaster will come. You cannot avoid it. Now up to us. What do we do? What do we choose our next path?
Yeah, maybe I'll add to that just because I'm such a, I mean, yes.
Thank you.
I can't help myself as a rights of nature person. I think the biggest threat is to limit the movement to just like nature suing humans in a court. Like that's a cool idea and like really new and innovative and transformative. But I think we need to think bigger than that. How do you give nature a voice in the political system and economics? What does it mean for nature to have rights economically? How do you consider constitutional law, family law, corporate law? It's like, how do you like let nature grow in the entire legal system in this innovative way, as opposed to just kind of limiting it to like nature can sue you? So I think if we open up our minds, that's kind of the best way that it'll manifest in a comprehensive, interconnected way, as nature does in our legal system. And so again, which is why I love the Bangladesh case, because it's not just about like nature like wins this lawsuit. It's about let's give nature a voice through guardianship. Let's make it like part of our society essentially. And I think that's the right approach and would, you know, mitigate any threat in 15 years. Yeah, go ahead.
I guess this is going into the connection with nature. So I'm from Canada. Thanks. I'm from Canada and work a lot with Nature Connection. And prior to COVID, I'll speak for Canadians, were spending 90% of their time indoors. And a lot of this is spent online. And so thinking about youth and getting them outside, what we're finding is that nature becomes this like unknown other. And so how do we kind of stop it from becoming this other thing that we're not even connected to on this larger scale? So our foodways are coming from countries all over the world, right? And we're depleting aquifers we're depleting aquifers for development, right? And we're expanding our cities and stuff. And so how do we stop nature from becoming an unknown other at a time when we're spending most of our time indoors, in cars, in malls, in our houses?
Laila, what do you think?
Well, I think that's the challenge, right? But you need to look at, for young people, what are the things that they're most attached to? Their mobile phones, the internet, right? So how can you reach them through digital means to get them as a pull sort of tactic out into nature. And so what we had done as Emirates Nature-WWF is we created this program called Connect with Nature, where we gamified nature. So we created an app and we got youth to come out into nature utilizing their mobile phones. We had put in place QR codes all across nature trails and had them do challenges. So they had to use their phone as a tool to start to interact with nature, right? And to communicate about nature and to become ambassadors for nature on social media. So we need to look at what are those unique tools and activities that people are most attracted to at the moment. I mean, we even at one point had to create a whole escape room out of a camping caravan and shovel it from one emirate to another and bring it from one event to the other, because we knew that that's what youth in a certain age group were attracted to. And you know what? It really worked. And so they had that interaction in the city with nature, finding clues on how to, solve the challenge of mangrove rehabilitation. And then they had that platform to actually go out in nature and act as a citizen scientist and act as a volunteer to be involved in the implementation of a wider portfolio of work. So it's that push and pull strategy, which we use a lot, of course, that in marketing. But we need to see what makes most sense to get people out there and to build that connection.
Great. I think we have time for maybe 2 or 3 more questions. Maybe someone can acknowledge that. I already gave 2 cool head nods to 2 people in the audience, kind of committing to their I'll give you a head nod too. But go ahead. I gave you the first cool head nod. So what's your question?
Thank you, Grant, and everyone. It's a very interesting panel. Just tying some of the comments on nature connection and the representation of nature beyond just nature suing us, and also your comment on AI and the conflict there. I'm the co-founder of Nature Perspectives, where we actually use AI to give voice to nature, to simulate the perspectives of natural entities. So, and also to engage the public with nature in creative new ways. And my question is to Justice Kamal. Do you see a future in which AI, instead of human representatives, can come to court and represent nature in cases?
Actually, you see, how you use it, that is the main question. Say, we have many things, flowers, corals, everything. If this conversation, we can go riverside, you feel, or in the forest. This conversation may be more effective next time. You understand the feelings of the nature. And artificial intelligence also, I do believe, if we use properly, definitely it will help us. Definitely, it will help us. But mind it, everything we genetically engineering. What is engineering? Genetically engineering our nature, like GM food, like anything. Whatever genetically engineering, that is not edible for human. You have to understand. When you understand, you know. Every genetically engineered crop or everything, it will harmful. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, in the back there, and then in the front here, and is that about right on time?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Hi, Elaine Franz from Flow in Action. I live in Switzerland. I'm just interested, has there been already any legal charging of, with companies bringing in their ESG reporting, has there been any legal challenges to their greenwashing, or is the legal community working with companies on their ESG reporting? And if nothing's happening in the present, how do you think it will emerge in the future?
Okay. Good question. Are you a good one for me?
Yes,
yeah, I guess I'm only vaguely familiar with pushback against ESG. I know there was a greenwashing lawsuit in the UK recently. I'm not sure if that was ESG specifically. I think about greenwashing a lot and putting nature on boards of directors, which is something we do. I'm like, I don't want companies to do that as just like a publicity stunt and then say, oh, we're one with nature. Nature has a voice at our company, and it's like not actually meaningful or transformative. I think with that, as with ESG, my recommendation is to not just have it be like a box you check off. You check off the ESG box, you check off the give nature a voice box, but to rather have it be an invitation for a transformation, or rather a reimagination of companies such that they are considered as part of nature. And I would love for companies to see 50 years ahead and to understand that the future is about humans being part of nature, and that means the companies we create are part of nature as well. So I'll advise any company that listens to me, hey, you want to be successful, not next quarter, but 50 years from now, think about how you can be part of the planet, and your company is part of the planet. Do lawsuits suing people for ESG, greenwashing, will that be part of that narrative? I'm not sure. So interesting question, but hopefully kind of that long-term vision is helpful to answer it. Is it last question? No one's cut me off yet, so I'm just going to keep doing questions until someone pulls me off the stage.
Well, mine is more like a remark than a question, more towards actually the lady from Canada that she was saying about how can we get interested the youth, particularly children, into becoming one with nature, or at least to be interested in the nature. I think we should not rely on any kind of initiative or a government. It starts everything in the family. You have to start from the very beginning, from the core. Our children is our extended limb of us, basically. The way we think our children is just continuing the same values. So, being myself Indigenous Canadian, I know that very well. So it's the way. If the land, we live with the land, not on the land. So if everyone does it the way, we wouldn't have this discussion at all. So and the children like I like the idea with having a walk with the interacting children through the devices to be interested in the nature. But it's still there are devices. Ideas get away them from the devices, and to be actually enjoying the nature as the way we grew up.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So I think with that last comment, our youth get away from technology, connect with nature. That includes the lawyers, that includes the judges, that includes the advocates. Let's all connect and deepen our relationship with nature. We'll wrap up this panel. If we could give an enormous, inappropriately loud, raucous round of applause for our incredible... All right. And thank you, everyone. Hope you stick around for the next session. Bye.
Thank you.